welcome to another episode of the Who Dat Jedi podcast on this wonderfully stormy Tuesday. You're not listening to this on a Tuesday, but man, it was a bit breezy and rainy out there today. Everybody make it through the mess okay? I'm sorry. Joined as always, I'm Aaron, and I'm always joined by Fredo and Dave. So, did you guys have any flooding or anything around your neighborhoods? I mean, it is New Orleans.
Yeah, of course. And I had to pick up the kids during, some of the worst of it. So school pickup is always an adventure with that stuff because it's like...
In general, school pickup is an adventure.
Right.
We always like to compare it to Mad Max, or there's just like cars driving over one another and bodies flying and everything. Yeah, so it's crazy. But yeah, we got through it okay.
Now, wait a minute. Are you talking about picking up your kids from school or the Chick-fil-A that's going in at Tulane and Carrollton? Because
that's going to be the next Mad Max. That's going to be Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome.
Man. However, there is one little bit of Saints news. So Paul Blart, the mall cop, is going to be playing Sean Payton in a Netflix movie. I don't know. Right. Just around the horn. What'd you guys think of this when you heard this? Kevin James, Adam Sandler's Happy Gilmore Productions is putting this together. It's when Sean Payton was suspended for Bountygate and went and coached his kids' little league team. It's going to be called Home Team, I think, like that. I think the potential of the story is awesome, but I'm just trying to square the circle with Kevin James as Sean Payton.
Yeah, that doesn't work.
No, I think it's because it's a Happy Madison production, and therefore, okay, which one of Adam Sandler's friends is going to play the role? Well, you, Kevin James, you'll do it. I mean, it could have been him, or it could have been David Spade, and I don't think I would have liked David Spade.
Oh.
So, actually, maybe David Spade will play Joe Vitt, or Norm Macdonald will play Steve Spagnuolo.
Well, maybe, and there's a chance that we'll have Farmer Fran on the sideline.
Right.
Oh my goodness!
So, I don't know, Dave. What'd you think when you heard?
What made me laugh about this was that Duras on Twitter was like, "The only way I'll watch this thing is if we get to see physical harm inflicted on the commissioner during the course of the runtime." And I thought, well, that's funny. So I made it. Like, I took it a step further. I was like, okay, so what if it's like Inglourious Bastards? We'll rewrite history. You get to see, all these people that Saints fans hate get murdered during the course of the movie. That might be really good.
Interestingly enough, apparently Sean Payton did read the script and did make a few changes to it. So he did have input in on it. So that's interesting. So anyway, let's just all wait and then watch and see what happens when NOLA Twitter or Saints Twitter, watches the Sean Payton movie. So
everybody will be watching at the same time. Just get ready for that.
I think that should be. Hopefully, we'll be through some of this pandemic garbage so we can all meet at a bar and watch it at the same time. Anyway, it's time for some Star Wars trivia, as always. So, yep, using the Trivial Pursuit DVD edition. Still need to get my DVD player so we can see what that's all about. But anyway, Fredo, let's go to you first. What Imperial officer refers to the Death Star as the ultimate power in the universe? Ooh, man, this is a tough one.
Okay,
but I think you've gotten this one before.
I can picture the guy.
Yeah, I remember this.
I can picture the scene, and I can picture the guy, and I can even picture Vader choking him. I just can't remember the name. So, I don't know it.
I'll take a guess. There's only so many admirals out there. I almost gave something away.
Admiral, I was about to say Admiral, but no.
Trap.
Admiral Jones.
It was Admiral Motti.
Okay, see?
Motti. Yep. Admiral.
I've only seen that scene 10,000 times. I've never heard a dude say it out loud.
All right. Well, yeah, but that was kind of a tough one to start off with. All right.
Mm-hmm.
And on the opposite end of the spectrum, because I have to be honest, it's always the first one I look at. Dave, with all apologies to Fredo, Who frightens off a mouse droid into Death Star's hallway?
Chewbacca.
Chewbacca the Wookiee. Yes, it is Chewbacca. All right. So, yeah, opposite ends of the spectrum. We've got,
I'm calling shenanigans.
we had Jeopardy and we had Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader? All right. So let's see what I get. Who's shown feasting on amphibious creatures from a snack bowl? Well, that's interesting. Well, so yeah, kind of. I mean, if this was a later edition, we could almost say it was Grogu, but no, it's not. That's going to be Jabba the Hutt. Yes, Jabba the Hutt. Woohoo! Except it was was it a snack bowl, or were they coming out of his hookah?
It's almost like he had like a bowl to the side. It didn't look like a snack bowl, but then
Yeah, whatever.
he liked them live.
Yeah. So, all right. So now that we're all warmed up, boy, I can't wait for one of the news stories. This will be interesting for us to talk about. But Fredo, let's toss it to you for some news.
Okay, let's start with the news, and then we'll get to the rumor. First bit of news, and it kind of came out yesterday, that they announced the next phase of the High Republic stories, and it's supposed to be the the Republic Fair. It's basically the overall theme. Basically, it starts with Kevin Scott's novel coming out June 29th called The Rising Storm. There's the whole idea that after the hyperspace disaster and stuff that happens, they try to have a big old event, Republic Fair, a showcase for the possibility and peace of the Republic, which of course attracts the fury of the Nihil and other characters. So it's supposed to be kind of like the overarching theme of the next series of the main novel, but also the next new young adult novels, comic books, the whole nine. So Daniel Jose Older's Race to Crash Point Tower will be under that idea. Some of the comic books that have been coming out. Justina Ireland's Out of the Shadows will also follow that. So it's taking the next step forward, the High Republic and their storyline.
Right on. Have you guys read any of the New Republic stuff yet?
I bought Light of the Jedi. It's still sitting on my table. I've just been swamped with work, and I'm hoping maybe to read it soon.
And I just need to go down to one of the comic stores. I need to get the comics, or if anybody's listening who might get us in on with Daniel Jose Older, just to give us some comic books. But no, I have to go down. To go down and get some comic books and check out that side of things. Dave, have you done anything? Because you got one of the books, didn't you?
I'm in the same boat as Fredo. I got the Light of the Jedi, and I haven't gotten very far into it yet. But I like that. I read the first couple of chapters. I like that. Life has gotten a little crazy.
Well, yeah, and with me, I've got like, for me, it's tough because again, I'm a admittedly slow reader, and I have so many Star Wars books sitting on my nightstand that I need to read, and after a while, it just gets kind of overwhelming to try to keep up with it. So. Yeah, I'll get there eventually.
I will say that the first novel though has gone on sale at this point, because that's how I ended up with it. I think Kate found it on sale and was like, "Oh, okay, why not?" and got it for me. So
now I do want to jump in with a little bit of news here, Fredo. It's not on our list, if it's okay, because I was actually listening to the Star Wars Underworld podcast on my way to work today. And they mentioned this, and so I looked it up, and this is way cool. LGBTQ plus heroes of Star Wars will will take the spotlight in Pride Month covers, as reported by Screen Rant here. So several characters such as Dr. Aphra and Lando Calrissian and Sana Staros, they're going to be on different comic book covers, I believe, for Pride Month. So, one of the things we always talk about is that, representation in Star Wars. And I think that is pretty awesome. And actually the Star Wars Underworld was talking about even some trans non-binary characters, I believe, from the High Republic who are going to be featured as well. So I mean that's really huge because I think about the conversations we've had with guests and how they you know didn't see themselves in Star Wars, and that's going to be a huge thing. So
Mhm. They're being not just smart, but being good about providing a representation and quality representation, not the token representation that unfortunately came before. This is actually their, characters who are involved that are active participants that you can get to know. So
yep.
it's only to the good.
So anyway, that was
Uh,
just kind of a neat thing.
okay.
So all right, so now we got a
So
rumor,
so
huh?
that was so those were the news. Here's the rumor, and the rumor goes something like this: Walt Disney has developed a lightsaber, kids. Get your pocketbooks ready. So I'm just going to read this out of The Verge, even though it's been run the globe now by this point. So apparently, at a Disney Parks event, Disney Parks Chairman Josh D'Amaro ended his presentation on April 8th by quote unquote whipping out a never before seen retractable lightsaber. That is the way that it's written, and I'm reading it
nobody,
verbatim.
nobody had. Apparently, I'm the only one in the room with an editor. Uh,
That I mean, you can follow the link. They say by quote by whipping out a never before seen retractable lightsaber, no video evidence, mind. So you got to apparently it's based on a 2018 patent for a quote sword device with retractable internally illuminated blade, and
yeah, so you're
they
not going to
have
be you're not going to be cutting off limbs or cutting through steel, kids. If you want to see that one, there's a couple guys who actually created one that's attached to a propane tank and everything that actually does cut through stuff. So
yeah, but you shouldn't be,
no,
even grown adults shouldn't be with that one. This one, so Ben Ridout, VR developer, actually had a number of tweet concepts and digital models explaining how it works. Basically, it's
well, it's
it's an
really
extension. It's a double tape measure extension.
and that's the thing that worries me because how many times have you been trying to measure anything beyond like 10 feet and the tape measure just kind of bends in the middle? You know what I mean? When you're trying, so we're all going to be able to recreate that one scene in the Family Guy Star Wars where Ben Kenobi, lights up his lightsaber against Darth Vader and it just kind of flops over and he says, "Your powers are weak, old man." I mean, that's my fear with this thing, because they talk about tape measure.
Or you know what's worse? You're going to be able to recreate Spaceballs when
Yep.
they get their shorts all twisted.
Yeah.
What's the matter, Colonel Sanders? Chicken?
When because I mean, the natural inclination is you got a lightsaber, your friend's got a lightsaber, you're going to want to swing at each other.
Now,
So the moment you hit,
here's the other thing. I mean, first of all, if you look at those concepts, it is really kind of cool. It is really kind of cool, but there's some things that are going to make me, and again, God, for God's sakes, it's I was happy with the golf club tube that I put tape on to make it look like a handle, and anyway. But so I would have killed to have some, and I hated the lightsabers that had the retractable blade, but only so far. You know what I mean? So there's a little bit of blue or a little bit of green or a little bit of red coming up. So this is going to be way cool for some kid to have an actual lightsaber that the blade emits and comes out and everything like that. But the 48-year-old Aaron is like going, the thing that's going to drive me nuts is that you hit this button and how fast is that motor going to go to extend the tape measure tube thing and light. So is it going to be, because you want a lightsaber to go, and it's lit up, not give it a second. Yeah, give it a second. Almost there, I don't know. It just
maybe start. It's got.
Yeah, when the batteries start running down, it's gonna be like you're clunking up the hill of your favorite roller coaster. Yeah, and then it gets jammed halfway through. You know what I mean? So, however, it does sound pretty cool.
So, go ahead, Dave.
I was gonna say, like the modern sabers that kids have now, they go all the way down in, right? And then you kind of flick your wrist, and the whole thing, comes flying out. And I got to the point where even with those kinds of sabers, you can light them up. You know, I got a little LED light in there and it shines up. So that's kind of cool. That's better than what we had when we were kids. But like, you know, it's hilarious to me. Like, this thing is like, people are calling it a real lightsaber. A real lightsaber. No.
Yeah, wake me up
no.
when it is a real lightsaber. Actually, I have a friend who used to be a cop, and he said he always, man, if there was a lightsaber, he said that would be my secondary, you know, wouldn't be the little gun stuffed down in his, you know, sock. He'd have a lightsaber hanging from his belt.
Now, the article does kind of bring up a good question. Do you think that this is something that'll be available to people to purchase, even if it's expensive, like the Optimus Prime that Jameson Mewes and Kevin Smith were showing, or will it just be a prop for, say, the Disneyland actors or Disney actors?
Well, that's the thing, also, or is it just going to be in the Star Cruiser, you know, type of a thing, you know?
Right.
I don't know. I think everything's for sale, right? I mean,
Disney invents patents because they want you to spend your money, and but yeah, it's a question of how much money they can, you know, because we're talking about the $200 lightsaber that they've got at Galaxy's Edge, and yeah, I mean, you could tell the heft and the quality of that. I can't imagine you charge double for a lightsaber that the first time you try to battle your friend, it bends at the point of impact.
Right.
Again, immersion gone.
And then, you know, well, yeah, and the way these, and again, we're all just basing it on these animatics that this dude created based on the patent that he saw. So it's not, we haven't seen anything yet.
Yeah, nobody has. Nobody outside the presentation did.
But I mean, there's also, yeah, I mean, the whole thing, and we'll end it with this, is the, you know, it'll be interesting to see how they can contain the light blade, because that's always been the problem, right? Is that, you know, and Fredo got so mad he left the call. You know, it's you light it up, and light just goes until as far as it wants. You know what I mean? It's like how, so that's why one of those drawings, it looks like there's a cap at the top to contain the length of the blade, which would be awkward, because then you have this, again, you basically have a golf club tube with a flashlight in the middle of it. I don't know. So yeah, I mean, you know, I think it would, check it out. You can, if you just go on Twitter and say, you know, lightsaber, you're going to find some of this stuff real easy. So yeah, so there's our news for the night. And how much would you pay for a lightsaber? And let's just say that Optimus Prime, $700. When I saw that Optimus Prime, I was like, that is way cool. And then when I saw the price tag, I was like, man, no, not that cool.
Not that cool.
So
he knocked all the cool right out of it, huh?
It is pretty sweet. So all
How
right.
much would you pay for the Optimus Prime?
How much would I pay for the Optimus? You know,
yeah. $100?
I don't know. You're talking to the guy who used his annual bonus, or at least a portion of his annual bonus, to buy the sail barge. So, I mean, that was when I had a job that gave annual bonuses, and I wasn't used to annual bonuses. So what do you do with an annual bonus? You buy the sail barge. So, I mean, yeah. So, I don't know. Everything's for sale. That's what I said earlier. So, all depends on how weak I am. All right, so let's leave Star Wars for a few moments, and then let's continue our little discussion about The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. A new episode came out this previous Friday, and also we got a mid-season trailer, and I want to talk about the mid-season trailer first. Lame. Don't call it a mid-season trailer and only give like one new shot, one or two maybe new shots. Everything else was stuff we've already seen and everything like that. You know, lame. You know, if you want people to go gaga, put a bunch of stuff that you haven't seen yet. So anyway,
plus mid-season with 2 episodes left.
Right. That's, yeah. So, or maybe we're just all late. It was already there. Just nobody, knew it. So I don't know. What you guys think of this past episode? It ended pretty dark, and the internet revealed themselves once again when they said, "Yes, that's the way Captain America is supposed to be." It's like, what? What? So, spoiler alert here. If you haven't seen Falcon and the Winter Soldier, we'll give you just a couple seconds to fast forward, about 10 minutes or so, because we'll be talking about this. Okay. I'm sorry. I never read any Captain America comic book, but I had a hunch that if I was to see Captain America slaughtering some dude with his shield and there'd be blood all over it, that's not the way Captain America is supposed to be. So I don't know. So what'd you guys think of this episode? It was like I said, ended dark.
That's just people missing the point as usual.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just
So
I'm sorry.
While you're taking the sigh there, okay, because Dave, you mentioned something in the last episode. You said about what this series right now is speaking to as far as race relations and things like that. The other thing that was hitting I think there's a lot of notes that this series is hitting, and the one that I've been stuck on with this past episode, it's kind of like an arms race. What country? I've always found this interesting. It's like that country is not allowed to have nuclear weapons, but our country can have a gazillion of them. You know what I mean? It's like who, and that's one of the themes. It's like who is, okay, so you can take this super serum, and it's like if you use it for noble causes, then it's okay. Well, who's to say what the noble cause is? And what's noble to Fredo might not be noble to me. And, so it's hitting, first of all, like I said, I see this, it reminds me of, like I said, the arms race. But then also that idea of, one person's terrorist is another person's, revolutionary. And,
Oh, it's really interesting on those levels because like it's very nobody's got their hands clean at this point, like that kind of thing, because like you think about it from just like a detached perspective. Like we step back from it and let's evaluate the characters that we're seeing as they're acting at present. Zemo comes off as being maybe the most moral individual in the show. And we know this isn't the case because we know what he's done. But like he's like not tempted for a second by the serum. It's like I'm gonna destroy it. It will only do harm. It will only do more harm. I'm gonna destroy this. He starts stomping on the stuff. And you contrast that with Walker, who like, within 5 minutes shoots it up because he doesn't have any self-control at all. And like how that's framed is really cool too, because it's like these characters are, him and his friend are talking it out, and he's like, "Would you take this if you could?" And his friend is just like, "Yeah, well, you could help more people, right?" And that's how he frames it. And it's a good reminder that none of these people are all good or all bad.
Well, it's also interesting. Sorry to interrupt you, but that's what I do. It's also interesting that, because you mentioned Zemo and Sam are kind of yin and yang, like dang near literally, because they both, he asked Sam, "Would you take the serum?" And he's like, and Sam was automatically, "No." And he pointed out, he said, that was, you answered quickly. Okay. So neither one of them would use this, the super soldier serum. But their means are different, and they're
right.
Sam wouldn't kill people to stop the serum from being used, whereas Zemo would. So like I said, then you get into that whole race relations thing. It's literally yin yang. But
everything in this series is kind of reinforcing why Sam was chosen by Captain America to take the mantle of the shield. And it's all also explaining why he wouldn't take it. And on those beats, it's really, really effective at telling that story. I mean, this is really what's crazy about this is if you really think about it, because like it's called Falcon and Winter Soldier, right? And it's really Sam's story. I mean, like honestly, we're getting some Bucky background, which is cool. We're getting to learn a little more about him. He's his buddy. He's helping him out. But it's really Sam's story.
Disney is not naming things worth a.
McConkey.
I mean, everything is just the person's name. It's Obi-Wan Kenobi. It's Loki. It's Falcon and Winter Soldier. It's, the Mandalorian. It's everybody's stupid name. But anyway, go ahead, Dave.
But I do think there's a larger point there, which is that the entire experience that Sam has is framed by what others observe about him, which is a lot of what the Black experience has been in this country, and what they've tried to tell us. He's like Black Lives Matter and all of these things where it's like, please just listen. And it's like, I'm not the person that has to explain racism to you. I'm not defined necessarily by the color of my skin. And yet they constantly get presented with these demands on them to do those things. And so like this is how this story is playing out. I mean, this is what Sam is having to deal with, and they're telling it in a really, really smart way. And again, it's like, here I am, the white guy, trying to explain this, but
I just kept thinking,
how American of you, Dave? How American of you? Yeah.
Hey, Dave, you're out of line, but you're right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. Yeah,
he's out of line, but he's right.
Yeah. But anyway, go ahead.
No, I was actually, because you're 100% right. I think, and partially, we have to recognize that, Captain America, Steve Rogers, was a creation of its time, 1940s, very jingoistic. It's a different time. So the idea that somebody like Steve Rogers existed and could take, because, or the funny thing is, remember, the mantle of Captain America was originally a merchandising aspect, was a mechanism to sell war bonds and drum up support for the troops back in Captain America First Adventure.
Yeah, but he was chosen for the serum not because of that, but because of his character,
which is what Dr. Erskine told him, because the serum doesn't
it enhances
make you.
Yeah,
it reveals you, and in many ways, the super soldier serum is a stand-in for power. It's a representation of power. Are you somebody who, if we give you total power or a great amount of power, would you use it for good? How do you perceive something as good? Is it a good if it benefits you? Or is it a good if it benefits others? Or is it a good where it benefits others, but only others that look and sound and talk and feel like you? Or would you like to expand that wider? So the idea for Sam to assume the mantle now of Captain America as a modern person in a modern world is not the same as it was for Steve Rogers to put on a costume and run out in front of a crowd. Now it's, as he admits, the shield has a lot of complicated meanings and feelings, and it's a symbol, like any other symbol, whether it's a flag or a statue or whatever. People imbue with symbol because they want to represent themselves. Therefore, it creates a dynamic of conflict, where some people will see themselves mirrored by it in the way that John Walker sees himself. Like John Walker thinks, I am Captain America. And you're like, but everything you're doing is nothing like what Captain America would do. Whereas Sam, who doesn't see himself as Captain America, is the opposite.
So where I'm at also is, it's driving me crazy. This happened in WandaVision. Here we are. We have 2 episodes left. And I have a feeling that we're going to cram a whole lot of stuff into one episode. Because there's a lot of stuff we haven't seen yet, and there's a lot of stuff that needs to be done. So I still wonder if as they're writing this, like, oh, 6 episodes, got all the time in the world, and then they get to through episode 4 and like, oh crud. But I mean, and I've also been seeing, I don't know, do you guys watch any of the like stuff on YouTube, like New Rock Stars or Screen Crush or anything where they do the top Easter eggs and stuff like that? One of them, New Rock Stars, they've been talking that it seems like there's a storyline that has been changed. There's originally a storyline that had to do with vaccines and a disease, and they're with COVID and vaccines, they're like, maybe we shouldn't go there. That's why a lot of the death of Enfys Nest's
Donya Madani.
yeah, thank you. I'm doing it again. It's Chubbs, it's Enfys Nest. It's
I mean, you're talking Carly Morgenthau, but yeah.
But you know what I mean. It's like that. The death there is very ambiguous, and when the doctor was talking about it, I think they end up like, it's kind of an awkward AR moment where he says tuberculosis or something like that. Anyway, I just find that kind of interesting that there's some changes there. All the Wakanda action was awesome. I'll just say that. Okay, go ahead, Fredo.
No, because I was gonna say, because all the Wakanda action ties into Bucky, and I love the opening scene where where Io is testing Bucky to see if he has broken free of the Winter Soldier programming. Because
that
I
was
think
a
in
powerful
some ways,
moment. Yeah.
But I think the reason they have Bucky in there is because he's the stand-in for all of Steve's values. That isn't, Steve can't be here anymore, so we're bringing the one person who probably looked up to Steve, not Captain America, not the guy with the shield, as he said in the movie, that skinny guy who wouldn't back down from a fight. He's been following him for so many years. It's the guy who believed in him. So he's challenging Sam because he goes, he believed in you. So I think that's why he's in this. It's all about, as Dave said, it's all about propelling Sam's journey. And I think that's why you need Bucky, because he's the person who's going to say, no, you're really ready for this in a weird way. But it was so interesting seeing the Wakandans because, first of all, they're amazing. The Dora Milaje are amazing.
Yeah.
But also because it creates a juxtaposition. Again, it's all these juxtapositions about symbols and peoples. It's an interesting dynamic that they're saying, look, for 5 years, the worst time of our lives were good for us because we all came together. We all saw each other as humans, as people. And then with one snap of Bruce Banner's fingers, it all went back to the way it was. And we couldn't see ourselves like that anymore.
I think it could be interesting to find out more about him because Sebastian Stan has done such a great job with that character, and he's been very compelling to watch. And you almost feel like we're not really getting his story. I feel like his story hasn't really been told yet. Yeah. It's like, with Steve's arc by the end of Endgame, you're like, yeah, he's done.
But
he needs his rest.
Nor has Sam's.
Yeah. But we're hearing it now, or we're learning it now, and we're beginning to learn who that character is and the challenges that he faces. And again, that's like the show, the name of the show. I'm like, even with that, I'm like, are we talking about racism with the name of the show? Because like the black man himself can't carry the entire show because it's his story. Mm-hmm. I mean, it really is. And I almost like I would love to hear some interviews from the creators of this show at some point and have that question and asked, because
why couldn't it just be the Falcon?
The Falcon, right. Yeah, because this has been his story all the way.
Mm-hmm.
So
absolutely.
So to just put a cap on this part of the conversation, so where do we think we're going here? Just real quick, anybody have any, and do you still think, who do you think the power broker is? Do we still think that Sharon maybe is, or?
Where we going? Big fight between the two of them and John Walker, because we saw it in the trailer. I heard an interesting theory that Thunderbolt Ross might be the power broker.
Mm-hmm.
Who is that? I'll be the dummy in the room.
Okay, you remember in the Avengers Infinity War, the Secretary of State or in Civil War, William Hurt.
Yeah, okay.
He used to be a general was in charge of the program that Bruce Banner was working for that turned him into the Incredible Hulk.
Okay.
And then they became the Secretary of State for the last couple of movies. So
that was a super soldier experiment. You haven't seen the Hulk yet, the Incredible Hulk yet, have you?
Have not.
Aaron?
Not yet. No.
Yeah.
okay.
That was the whole theory behind how Banner got transformed. They were after the super serum again. And then the super serum actually played a part in the narrative in that story with Abomination. And so it's like very much in keeping. I think like he makes sense, but I mean, again, you have to ask, like, why would he have to go through these back channels? Like, why wouldn't he just do it? Because he would presumably have the power to just do it. So I still kind of like Hydra, because I feel like who are the people within the MCU who have been most obsessed with this super soldier thing? It's been Ross and it's been Hydra. And so, like, those are kind of the two most likely candidates.
Of course, and I'll just throw this out there, and then we'll move on real quick. Why couldn't the swerve be that the power broker is Zemo? And he's kind of playing. I mean, he was, found also he wasn't expecting the opportunity, but he had the opportunity all of a sudden to get the serum because here comes Bucky into his jail cell. So I don't know. I guess we shall find out in 2 episodes.
I think no chance, 0 chance.
Okay, well,
he killed the guy. He killed the scientist guy. He smashed the vials. I think there's no way. Well, because the power broker wants the.
But we don't know why he wants he wants the serum. He may want it to destroy it.
Yeah.
So maybe. There's possibility. Anyway, so let's leave Marvel and let's go into something that it's all Star Wars. As you know, we've said on this podcast before, there was a release on Disney Plus a couple weeks ago of the Vintage Collection, where you have the Ewoks and you have Battle of Endor, stuff like that. But you also had the Clone Wars micro series, and Dave has mentioned on this show before that he's really geeked out over the micro series, and I had never seen the micro series. And so I just have watched I guess they have 2 seasons. There was only 2 seasons, right? So
2 seasons.
I've watched it all. So we're just gonna, and Fredo, you've seen it before, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Have you watched it recently since it's been released?
Or have I watched it since it's been in Disney Plus? Yeah. Not since it's been Disney Plus, but I do have the DVDs. I've seen it plenty of times.
All right, cool. So I guess we're just going to talk about this and what we think about this micro series. I will preface it with this. I remember when the Clone Wars movie was released, and I remember being absolutely not interested whatsoever. Did not go see it. I think I finally watched it on Netflix, a couple of years ago. So animated Star Wars, I had no interest in. Just didn't float my boat. I will say this after watching, now I've seen all of Clone Wars, all 7 seasons, and now I finally saw the micro series, and very much like what I said, how when you talked about Justice League, how there's a lot of things in the Snyder Cut that really helps to explain and make you appreciate what Batman versus Superman, and also what we had with the other Justice League movie. This micro series, had I watched it, I would have probably, I don't know if enjoy would be the word that I'd use, but would have not been so kind of lost in seeing Revenge of the Sith. Mm-hmm. I mean, Grievous makes a whole lot more sense. For example, and when, like he says, I remember watching Revenge of the Sith, And when he's like, I've been trained in your Jedi arts by Count Dooku. And I'm like, what? When? Well, I didn't do the summer reading. If I had done the summer reading, seen this micro series, then it would, okay, because there's an actual scene of Dooku training Grievous, or he's walking around he's a robot with a cough. And it's like, why? That makes watching that in the theater, it was like, what? And now it's like, okay, I get it. They were setting up Revenge of the Sith. So anyway, so like I said, there was a lot of things that were that made Revenge of the Sith a lot more palatable. How about that? All right, so I'll toss it to you guys, and you can, because you guys are the ones who have seen it a bunch. You can ask me what I thought about this, that, or the other, whatever. But go for it. So, Dave, why are you so turned on by this series?
Well, I think like one of the things for me personally is that my kids love this thing. I can stick the DVD in the DVD player and they'll watch it for the next hour and not complain at all. So like that's a really cool thing as a parent, right? But obviously my appreciation goes back to when I first watched it, and I was like Fredo. I watched it when it first aired. I got the DVDs. Trying to remember the exact context for when those DVDs became available. Was it along with the Revenge of the Sith DVD launch?
No, I think because what happened was season 1, which was more of an anthology,
Right.
comes out right after Attack of the Clones. I want to say it's maybe like 2003, 2004.
2003.
Whereas Revenge of the season 2 is made specifically to lead into Revenge of the Sith. It's made to fit in much the same way the last season of the Clone Wars fits directly with the events right before and during Revenge of the Sith. Mm-hmm. So the final shot of season 2 of Clone Wars, so the animated Clone Wars, is them getting the call that Palpatine has been kidnapped and need to rush back. But I think that was
the micro series you're talking about.
Yeah, the micro series.
Yeah, the micro series, not the Clone Wars. Yeah.
Okay. But that was the idea. Season 2, which was 5 episodes of 5 minutes, was designed to be a prelude or precursor to directly the events of episode 3, whereas season 1 was more, okay, we'll just show you snippets here and there of the Clone Wars.
No, they were really effective at that, like building anticipation for the third movie. And that's probably where a lot of my fondness for them comes. And again, like you said, Aaron, they developed things a little bit better. So when you go into Revenge of the Sith, you're not asking, why is Grievous coughing all over everybody? Does he have COVID? No, it's, it was something else entirely. And these, I guess, well, like my question was, I don't even remember when the DVDs dropped, but that's kind of immaterial at this point, I guess. But I got a lot of reasons why a person if they haven't watched this series should probably sit down and watch.
Well, let me.
But yeah, let
me just say some of my initial reactions when I was watching this. First one was, holy crap, there's a lot of battles. I mean, but of course it's called the Clone Wars. Okay, so but a lot of battles. The other one was like, holy crap, there's not a lot of dialogue. It's like battle, 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 dialogue, battle, 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 battle. So that strikes me. But that's actually a really cool storytelling device. I don't mean that to be a negative thing. It's like they do a lot of showing rather than telling. And I will say, however, that is why I liked season 1 better than season 2. Season 2 bothered me because every time Anakin and Obi-Wan were on the screen and they were talking, it felt like a Scooby-Doo episode. It was it was the humor between the two of them was forced. It was, forced. It was just kind of clumsy, and like I said, it felt like a Scooby-Doo episode. Like I said, I thought season 1 was a lot better than season 2. I thought even the animation was better in season 1 than season 2. It's like in season 1, well, season 2, that you see a whole
McConkey.
lot more Jedi. And I think it was like, oh, we got to draw a Wolfman Jedi. Quick, draw him. You know, okay, we got to make a furry-headed guy. Draw it, quick. You know,
Shaggy Jedi.
you know, yeah, and it's so I mean, it just seemed like a lot
Yeah,
of
it's funny because you mentioned
Scooby-Doo,
Scooby-Doo. There's
yeah.
that Padawan who looks exactly like Shaggy.
yeah, he goes running
yeah.
out and gets killed, right? I mean, that's
Yeah.
Mhm.
what should have happened with all of the Scooby-Doo gang. They're so clumsy. But anyway,
I don't know. Does Fredo, do you have any sort of like general thoughts on like why somebody would want to watch this?
First of all, from a historical standpoint, it's interesting to watch it. From a Star Wars standpoint, just a fun standpoint, it's a good little series. Again, if you're interested in the deep plot lines that Dave Filoni and crew get into later, this is almost like an appetizer to that. You're
Yeah.
not going to get, because particularly season 1, there is one story which is all about Asajj Ventress, where you finally meet her being hired by Dooku and Sidious to go out and hunt and kill Anakin, which you later recognize, no, it's a test. They're trying to push him further away. But besides for that storyline, which dovetails from the battle that Obi-Wan's having for the banking clan planet, most of the other episodes are self-contained or 1 or 2 episodes. And so they're like morsels. You like Kit Fisto fighting on the water, you get to see that. Mace Windu just whooping everything in sight, you get to see that in a couple of episodes. So
now you didn't
there's-
let me.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, you didn't let me
No, no.
finish my thoughts here though, because I will give you a big reason for this is that these 2 seasons do, and it's like what it's my praise of Clone Wars, the other series in general, is that it actually makes you understand and appreciate the character of Anakin Skywalker better. It's like there is such a disconnect almost between episode 2 Anakin and episode 3 Anakin. And this, I mean, you see that he's, you know, susceptible to the dark side. It also, you know, his relationship with Padme, you know, they set that up and how it's, you know, secretive and how he doesn't like sneaking around, but he's, you know, you see his struggles with that. So it's, instead of going from episode 2 where they're married to episode 3 where I'm pregnant, you know, and it's like, so there's a
he
lot
kept going
of
back and forth.
I mean, it does such a good. You see the way he deals with Asajj Ventress, you know, and uses total dark side there, but then also is the like literal savior of some you know, planet by going and freeing all their menfolk, you know, from captivity. He was quote unquote the chosen one, Ghost Hand, you know. So like I said, it builds that character of Anakin Skywalker so well. So I will say that's a reason why to watch this. Sorry, Fredo, to step on you.
No, not at all, not at all. And it does a good job. And here's what's so striking about it: it has a ton of story, but it's very much because it's playing with limited runtime. I mean, it knows we're telling you an hour. It's an hour's worth. It's an hour basically. Season 1 is an hour. Season 2 is an hour. It's just a question of how they're dividing it. In one, they give you 20 episodes of 3 minutes. The other one, they're going to give you 5 episodes of 5 minutes. So it might be half an hour for that one. But it's the idea of we're going to condense this so it's all lean. There's no fat to this. There's moments of levity, but it's very much just focused on action, which, again, this is why you hired Genndy Tartakovsky, the animator who created Samurai Jack, which is what actually attracted George Lucas to get him to do this, was this idea of, okay, you can tell action moments or action stories in this medium in a very concise manner, which I think in some ways is what influences him later on to go back and do a more fuller Clone Wars story with Dave Filoni in the animated series that we get to see later on. But in terms of just why watch it, if you want good Star Wars content, this is like Star Wars sushi. You can just keep popping them one after the other, and then when you're done, you're like, darn, I wanted more.
That doesn't help me.
Well, I liked one thing that you said earlier, Aaron, which was just like the comparing this to Justice League, because like again, dovetailing off our last episode, this series, the Filoni series, is like a remix of this micro series, because like that series, the Filoni series, is like the Snyder cut version of this series.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting to be able to watch both now, because a lot of people haven't been able to watch this for the longest time because it was only on these DVDs that were out of print forever and ever.
Well, that's what I was
think-
trying to figure out, is whether or not the ending of season 7 and the ending of the Clone Wars micro series, do they jive with one another?
No, they don't. Not at all. Not at all. Kinda,
because
No, wait.
I mean,
in terms of theme or in terms of
Well, I mean-
matching story.
I mean, it's and Dave, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I was struggling with this. Like, do they jive? And they kind of do. I guess it all depends on who's telling the story. It's like Anakin and Obi-Wan are called to rescue the Chancellor. And so it's like, if Dave's telling the story, he may have heard that they were at such and such, and Mace Windu gave him a call, or Fredo heard the story that they were on a cruiser and they got a call and they had to. So they do kind of jive with one another. But Dave, I'm sorry, you were okay. So
I agree with you on that though. Like I like that interpretation because I like this series so much. Again, it's for me, this has been part of my headcanon forever and ever, and this is why I didn't watch the Filoni series for the longest time, because I knew they wouldn't match 100% perfectly. And so for me, I'm like, well, this is my headcanon, so I'm good. And I've gotten to the point where I eventually watched the Filoni series, and now again, it's kind of like watching the two different versions of Justice League. Though I think in this case, both of these series are better than either of the versions of the Justice League that we got. But I do think a person can get a better appreciation for both of these versions of the same story by watching both. It's like a cover band, or it's like a remix of a song that you really liked, that gets put out by another artist, and you're like, well, that's a different version of that I didn't expect. But now I'm forced to kind of look at that song differently, and I like that about it.
I'll tell you, one of the things that I really appreciated for it was the fact that it was willing to be to bring us the rest of the Jedi into the story. It wasn't, yes, Anakin and Obi-Wan and Padme are central to the story because they are the central characters to the prequels. But the idea of getting other characters, like we finally got to see, Mace Windu kind of go out. We get to see Yoda. We get to see what's her name? Shakti in battle. Okay, by the way, you tell me, Aaron, tell me this. Which General Grievous would you have preferred? Clone Wars General Grievous or Episode 3 General Grievous?
Oh, Clone Wars General Grievous. Hands down. His voice in Revenge of the Sith drives me crazy.
But not just the voice, the way he presents himself. And you only get him for like a few minutes.
Sorry, I don't mean to make this in bash Revenge of the Sith again, but I mean, the fact that Grievous was coughing from the get-go took me out of the movie. I'm like, why is this robot coughing? I mean, I was like, what is going on here? I mean, it took me out of the movie, and that's been my criticism. Is like, well, okay, if I would have done my homework, if I would have been a good Star Wars fan and watched this, micro series beforehand, it would have made sense. But that's, I don't know.
I tried to, like, at the time, I remember trying to tell people, like, you got to watch the micro series. You got to watch the micro series. Because, like, I remember watching the Revenge of the Sith, really enjoying it, really enjoying General Grievous, even, in the movie. And then people are like, well, what's the deal with this guy? And I had to like back up and I'm like, oh yeah, like the movie version
Well,
It's not nearly as interesting or fearsome
and it's
as
what they, if it's done right. It's kind of like I remember when J.J. Abrams' Star Trek movie came out.
Mhm.
My sister-in-law, who is a huge Trek fan, Trekkie is
Mhm.
derogatory, uh, huge Trek fan. Um, she said what was cool about that movie was that there was enough stuff in there, and it's very much like the Marvel movies. There's enough stuff in there for the uber geek to go, oh, that was so cool, but it doesn't get in the way for the person who's never read a Marvel comic in his life to enjoy the movie. So here's where Star Wars failed, is that they just kind of assumed that all their fans were going to watch the micro series, and then, you know, the guy who's been a fan his whole life goes in to watch, what's probably supposed to be the biggest Star Wars movie ever,
The finale.
and is taken out of it because homeboy's coughing, and I don't understand why. You know what I mean? So, um, so yeah, I mean, so that's Dave. That's an interesting point that you're like, well, why didn't you enjoy this? And like, oh,
yeah.
okay, you didn't have the decoder ring. All right.
It's fun background for people who like weren't around back when the movie was released or were very, very young and don't remember it. It's just like, yeah, like people were like, what? With this General Grievous character, like, what? And for people who'd watched the micro series, we were like, yeah, I get to see him in live action now. This is so cool. And again, the point of the character isn't like he's cool. It's like another aspect of Darth Vader in foreshadowing. It's like
Right.
Darth Vader is kind of like Maul in certain ways. He's kind of like Dooku in certain ways. He's kind of like Grievous in certain ways. And it's just foreshadowing. We're going to put it all together in Darth Vader eventually. But I mean, there's so much here in the micro series above and beyond General Grievous that I really like. Um, we were talking about Genndy Tartakovsky. Um, I did not know this, but Lucas was actually grooming him to be kind of the John Lasseter of Lucasfilm Animation. That's an actual quote that you can go and track down. He was thinking of Tartakovsky in the way that Filoni eventually became Filoni, which was sort of like the head of Star Wars animation. And so, like, to me, that's kind of interesting to know, like, they were that impressed with him and that impressed with his work. And I can kind of see it too, because this animation, when you look at it, is unlike anything else that we've seen in Star Wars before or since. Um, I always kind of fall down on this side of there's value in distinctiveness. Oh, there went the timer. We're gonna have to hurry up. Um, there's value in distinctiveness, right? If you do something I haven't seen before, I'm going to really be a bigger fan and give you a longer leash. And like this was a very different series, and I think like that it's going to become more important because we have the Star Wars Visions series that's going to come out eventually, and that's supposed to be anime style. And this series is very Japanese anime style as well. So like I think that it's more likely than not they're going to draw from this a little bit. And I've seen people speculate that other Star Wars works that have been released have drawn from this. The most compelling example I've seen was the Mandalorian Chapter 2, which was the child. I think was the one with the Jawas, and there was basically no dialogue.
Yeah.
And it was just action. And it's like, again, show me, don't tell me. And this series is a really good example of that. And that's in keeping with what George always believed in. It's like if I can show you, I should do that instead of trying to tell you.
And that's exactly what this micro series does. That was, again, one of my first things right off the bat I noticed. Is like, wow, nobody's talking. All right, cool.
Yeah,
and
I was gonna say it leans into the strengths of Star Wars, which tend not to be dialogue, tends to be action and setting and story and music.
On the flip side, however, I mean, we're always talking about inclusion. So it's great that this series, is showing and not telling, but that's just hunky dory if you have your sight. So, that's, I mean, so while we get on that kick, I stop and, think about, okay, yeah, so that's kind of, I don't know. It's just one of those cruddy things. Um, the, the thing that I think the Star Wars fans get so hung up on what is canon and everything fitting in and stuff like that. And I just want to go back to the point that I made earlier, is that I think that's where the animated series can, have a little bit more wiggle room, because it's like, again, if we all witness the same accident and the cops come and interview each of the three of us, they're going to get a similar story. They're not going to get the exact same story. You know what I mean? And so, and I think that's what, when I was watching this, is like, okay, yeah, this does kind of work with the other Clone Wars series. It also works with, the movies. Nothing is, and again, it's always, I think Star Wars can also always have that from a certain point of view, squinty eye, back, get out of jail free card. So like I said, I thought it was enjoyable. It's also, it's interesting, Dave, you said your kids dig it because it's actually quite darker than anything other Star Wars, really. I mean, there's a lot of violence and a lot of people dying and getting crushed by Grievous and, stuff like that. But it's good.
I mean, it's all animated, I guess, what kind of takes some of the edge off. But it works really well for me here too. And again, this is kind of the point where we're talking about this being a different version of the Filoni series. This is a very briskly told series. It's very short. The episodes themselves are very short. There's no bloat.
I will
talk
say
about Clone Wars.
I will say, however, I'm glad that I watched it on Disney Plus, because it's like an hour and change each season.
Mm-hmm.
If I was to watch it on Cartoon Network at a couple minutes each, it would have driven me nuts. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, they have the Forces of Destiny cartoons, and they have all these other shorts, which are just kind of like in the same vein. But it's like, I like that it's compact, and I think, like, again, a lot of people like, I can't sit down and watch Clone Wars because it's like 700 hours long and there's too many episodes, and I know that there are episodes about Jar Jar and I don't care about that. This is not that. This is the exact opposite of that. And so I think, like, that's its strength and its favor. And one thing we sort of briefly touched on, but I think, like, is worth reiterating, is that the action moments are all very well done. Fredo and I we were doing the best favorite lightsaber battles episode a few months back. Mm-hmm. And we both listed a lightsaber battle from this series, a different one. And I think, like, that kind of speaks to the quality here. I'm usually not a big action guy. I'm looking for those character moments. But the action here is superbly done.
Fredo, you got some final thoughts on the Clone Wars?
Simply to say, if you haven't watched it, do yourself a favor, catch it. It's like I said, it's just in a couple of hours. You can do it one evening. It's surprising how much it's told on a visual medium. I mean, it takes full advantage of the visual medium and maximizes the storytelling. Yes, you do get some story. I mean, yes, you do get some dialogue. Particularly, I love the dialogue with whenever Count Dooku's on scene, because I think it may be the same voice actor, but just the way that they present themselves and the way that they present Grievous. If you've only seen Grievous as the sneaky, coughing, running away guy from battle kind of thing, his introduction is completely different. So you got to see that.
All right, guys. So we're going to make a decision here on air. On air, it's recording, so Dave can cut this if he wants to. But we're going to dive further into the vintage collection on Disney Plus. What do you want to talk about next week? Do we want to talk about Caravan of Courage, Ewoks: The Battle for Endor, or The Faithful Wookiee?
Let's do The Faithful Wookiee.
That's the Boba Fett cartoon from the holiday special. So we will watch that and see what we think. Because I honestly couldn't tell you. I don't remember that cartoon. I've just seen little snippets here and there. So how about if we do that? We watch The Faithful Wookiee and we'll review it for the kids at home. I know my wife is itching though to watch The Battle for Endor. So
we've been trying to get we've been trying to get that lined up, and we just haven't yet. But yeah, I know our kids are the same way.
Because you just know there's a part of it they're going to be really disappointed. But look, there are blurgs. Remember the blurgs from The Mandalorian? Yeah, but they look like stop motion tadpoles. But anyway, cool. All right. Well, yeah. So check out the Clone Wars micro series. I dug it. Lucy says it is time to go. So, hey, hit us up on Twitter or on Facebook and let us know what you thought about the Clone Wars micro series. Or Falcon and Winter Soldier as well. Like I said, we'd like to be bothered. I do have to end with this. I am addicted to Pac-Man 99, and I have made it as high as 4th. 99 people playing Pac-Man at the same time, and every ghost you kill messes with the other people playing. So if you're playing this, you're trying to figure out how you stay alive. And you keep eating your power pellets to keep them the blue ghosts, and then eat the fruit because that resets everything. So you get power pellets and everything. And it is like crack. It is addictive. But like I said, I've made it to 4th. So good on you, Switch. I love it. So, but I guess until next week, we will say who dat?
Who dat?
Who dat?
And you all have a great week.
McConkey.